Okay. Okay. The next part says, "Unto the angel of the church of Ephesus." So, they're not writing the church of Ephesus. The guy in the candlesticks is telling John not to write to the church of Ephesus. He's telling him to write to the angel of the church of Ephesus. The angel's like something maybe made out of time and light, and Jesus, like they're saying earlier, the first part of the last chapter. And so he's saying, don't write it to the church, saying, write it to the thing that of that church bears the properties or qualities or attributes of Jesus Christ, time and light. And he says to write, "These things saith he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand, who walketh in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks," which we reviewed my answers on those earlier. "I know thy works." Okay, wait. So what it is saying is uh, that he's saying, so the guy that John saw in the candlesticks is telling John, tell the angel of the church of Ephesus that this is what I said. That this message is from me. I know thy works and thy labor and thy patience, and how thou canst not bear them which are evil. And thou hast tried them which say they are apostles, and are not, and hast found them liars. And hast borne and hast patience, and for my name's sake hast labored and hast not fainted. So he's saying, so I see you. You're working hard. You've been patient, using time, using your energy and power. It maybe even feels like maybe it caused them some pain, but they still, or made them could have made them tired, but they just didn't go slack in their efforts. And that also, while this is going on, there are also somebody, some element or party or counterparty or something that said that they are following Jesus, but they're actually lying when they say that. It's not true. They just say they're just copying what he's saying, but they're not actually following him. They're just saying they are. So they're like posers. Maybe they're like posers or something. It is maybe a way to steal something through fraud. Could be. I think people steal things through fraud that way sometimes, pretend to be something they're not. Hey, that happens in nature all the time, with like animals and plants and stuff. So it'd be pretty easy for a human to do that, actually, if they wanted to. Nevertheless, okay, so the candlestick guy continues on. Nevertheless, you guys want to just call him Lumineer? So Lumineer, whatever, I'll just say candlestick guy. I want to use my own words. I don't want to copy anyone too much. Okay. Nevertheless, I have somewhat against thee, because thou hast left thy first love. Ooh, that sounds sad. Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works. Or else so it sounds like they sort of did go a little slack. Pretty good, but not perfect. Maybe like B plus, maybe B minus or C plus or something. Not an A. So do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent. So the candlestick, well, that's fuel, it's energy, and it's light, so it's power. Um, it's made out of animal or plant fats and proteins that are flammable, can produce a pretty steady flame, pretty steady light. Okay, you get some flickering. The light isn't always as steady as like an incandescent lamp or an LED light bulb that we have nowadays, but it's still pretty good, especially for back then. Really, a big improvement over not having a candlestick. And so it represents the largesse of their energy and power that they will lose to specifically this guy, the candlestick guy that John saw, who he's relaying this message from. He says that that guy will himself take their energy and power away from them if they don't change their ways and means, calibrate, adjust course, and do the things they were doing at first the way they were doing them the first time, that was working better than, I guess, now by the time they received this message. But the candlestick guy continues on, says John, but this thou hast, that thou hatest the deeds of the nickel. But this thou hast. He says, I'll give you this. He says, I will give you this. He said, I do hold something against you, but I'll give you this, that thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitanes, of the Nicolaitans. So they hate the Nicolaitans, and the candlestick guy says, which I also hate. So he says, you know what? One thing I like about you is you hate some of these same guys I hate, the Nicolaitans. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Okay, so you still don't know who the Nicolaitans are, so now John has created some suspense. We're waiting to know what, unless we already know, if he is expecting any large number of readers to find these contents and read them, then, he has wittingly built suspense as we wait to find out who this new character is that these guys in the church of Ephesus hate, and that the candlestick guy also hates. He that hath an ear, let him hear. Okay, so I don't know, maybe him that overcometh will I give to eat the tree of life. So this guy's like made of light and stuff. He's like a light guy, and he hates the Nicolaitans. And the next thing he says is that ear, hearing, spirit of hearing and ear. Maybe he hates, like the sound. He hates the kind of what a German might call the flesh, or I think in Latin they call it the body. Chemicals, things made out of the heavier stuff than light, and that can also bear and transmit waveform functions that the ear can interpret. The ear is made up of a kind of like a small bundle of nerves, that has a bunch of tiny holes in them with a bunch of tiny hairs in them connected to the auditory circuitry in the brain behind the ear. And it has about 1/40th of the auditory cells in it that the eyes have to process visual phenomena that they are attuned to. So it is not quite as high resolution as the eye, but only on 1/40th, if you want to use that as a benchmark, the number of cells. Really, it's maybe the number of connections between the cells that are in some way useful or effectual connections um, for an anatomist or biologist or neurophysicist to discuss further. Um, so the light guy is saying, to him that overcometh the ears, the sounds of the ears, whatever the reader, um, who is ostensibly a human, or configured in a similar way to a human and operating in an environment similar to common human environments, would find as a suggestion from the candlestick guy that the eyes are better than the ears, and you can do more with the eyes or something, but do better with the eyes than you can with the ears. Um, and he even hates the ears and hates the auditory faculty. Now, there are certain properties that the eyes and ears have different, like uh, uh, visual um, perception in humans is line of sight. Um, you can't see around corners, whereas the ears are more of a, how would you say, it's a kind of a cloud perception in which you can hear things that make sounds that your ears are attuned to around corners. For example, um, or through walls. There are many kinds of walls that you may not be able to see through, but that you could hear through. Um, the candlestick guy says he hates the ears. Um, and he's a candlestick guy. He's not even an ear guy. He's a He's an eye guy. Um, and he says he promises that the angel of the church at Ephesus, if you overcometh the ears, then the candlestick guy says that in return for that, uh, he will give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God, which is a reference most likely to the earlier chapters in the ancient book of Genesis and the story of the first modern human man and woman. Now, if you go with the eyes instead of with the ears, you go in much smaller and much higher resolution. So that's where he says the riches are, and in some sense, by the numbers, by the sheer difference in volume and specified resolution, um, that this volume of waveform functions is capable of, you have more splendorous riches than you have in the ears. And uh, the candlestick guy told John to tell the angel of the church of Ephesus that that also that those riches are um, easily redeemable for um, the continuation of your human family. He continues on, and unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So he's repeating a message we've heard before in a short amount of time in the contents of this book, which is he sees you, he knows your works, he can count your works, he can specify them. He could make commentary like a sports announcer on what you're doing, and people would all agree what he's saying is correct, and they're all seeing the same things he's seeing, that you've actually done. And he also knows of your tribulation, where things went wrong, and it hurt, or it was absurd, or it was just stupid and painful for no reason, for no gain, and there was nothing you could do there but kind of wait around that part or ignore that part for the places where you could actually do meaningful work, in hope of gainful benefit. And of your poverty, when there is a lack of means, when you have the ways but there is a lack of means. But thou art rich, he says parenthetically in the authorized version. um, and it could be a reference to the richness of the senses, or them living in a city, or who knows what. And I know the blasphemy, and then he says he also knows the blasphemy of them who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So now that could be the Nicolaitanes that he's referring to, guys that are saying they're Jewish, but they didn't really read. They didn't actually do the work. They didn't study. They didn't read up, and they're acting like they did. They just hear other guys talking who did read, and then repeat some of the things they say, repeat maybe some of their most popular jokes, to be a parrot and act like they're them and blend in with them, but they're not really. They couldn't do what those guys could do with those works because those works are not in them. They never read them, or they spent not very much time or energy reading them and forgot the contents, and the contents are replaced by something else they spent more time with. And he says, in fact, they're the synagogue of Satan. Now, Satan's the guy in. Now, Satan is referred to in the book of Job as Ha-Satan in Hebrew, and Satan is like Ha-Satan is like a guy that knows the Almighty and Most High God of the universe, and that moves around the earth, um, moves around the world, say, um, and that he noticed it. Now, Job is one of the oldest books in this compendium or library or book catalog, and it's almost as old as Genesis. Some say it's based on a story that's older than those written down in Genesis, and may be the oldest book in the Bible. And Satan asks God, well, actually, how it goes is God asks Satan, have you seen my servant Job? And what do you make of him? And Satan said, he's not real. You are making him the way he is. He's not making himself the way he is, and he's not real. He's a puppet. Um, and God says, all right, I will let you make him more real, but just don't kill him, and don't hurt him too bad or anything, but you can just take away everything he has, his wife and family, all his friends, all his money, all his resources, and see what he does and see if that helps make him more real. To have to go and try and get those things back himself without me propping him up, as you say I've done. And then Job does it, or Satan does that, and then Job still likes God or something. I don't have the text in front of me, so I can't give you my best commentary on it. But from what I remember, it basically feels kind of like Job just still likes God anyways. So that proves that he's real. He is still real. And then uh, and then Satan says, well, let me hurt him some. And God said, okay, just don't kill him. So then he gets skin diseases. His skin hurts. His skin breaks. Has all these problems. And it's painful. And he's very sick. And he still likes God and doesn't have a problem with him. And then all his friends show up and they all just talk about what life is like or whatever. And then finally, some guy shows up that's maybe Satan. I don't know. They say it's like Leviathan, or I don't know. God, they say God shows up. Uh, the Most High Almighty shows up or something. But maybe it's Satan. I don't know. And he tells Job. He starts asking Job a bunch of questions about science, like, how far away the stars are, and like what all different animals live in the ocean, and then pretty much he asks Job, do you think I know what all those answers are to those questions? And Job said, yeah, I think you know. And so he's like, okay, well, I'll just, all right, well, okay, you win. And then just lets Job, then God gives Job back all the things that he lost, and even more than he had before. And also now Job thinks about science or something, maybe. Or maybe by thinking about science is how he got all those things back and got even more than he had before, going through all this with Hasatan. And so Hasatan's method is he kind of makes things worse for you so that you take like one step backward to take two step forward. Creates like a pinwheel. He's like an axis or a pinwheel that helps create a machine of you and your area of the network that allows you to advance in your knowledge and mastery over your world and your area of the network, and to prosper that way, and to give strength and health and vitality to your life. So the candlestick guy says that these guys say that they're Jews, but they're not. They're the synagogue of this guy, Satan from Job, I think. Now, they tell you more about Satan in some later books, what their ideas are about him and stuff that Jesus talks about him. Jesus is kind of obsessed with him and talks about him a lot. You get a very such an economy of words said about Satan in Job and in Genesis, if that snake is in fact Satan, as the Christians say is. But Jesus says a lot more about him, and some other guys that were writing books about Jesus later have some more things to add about what Satan is like, to illuminate his nature as to help serve a message that they're delivering to you with the contents of their book. So he says they're blasphemous, incredibly offensive to God, I guess, or something, insulting to God, which is, how can you even insult God? But I guess, that's a question that be free to leave an answer, what your answer is, in the comments. As they say, they are Jews, but they're not. In fact, there's a synagogue of Satan. He could be saying that they make things worse so that you have to work to make things better, which would be in line with them saying that he hates these guys. Because if they were just like cool and trying to help with science in a way that he didn't hate, maybe what we're looking at in these words is the description of a blind delegation of idiots who don't know what to do and make things worse and make more completely unnecessary work for others who are already working so hard against real problems, without this group of idiots that the candlestick guy hates and that they hate, adding to their problems for no benefit. The candlestick guy continues on. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. So he's saying, let me finish the rest of it. There's only a bit left of this verse. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So he's saying, okay, so don't be afraid of what's going to happen next because of these guys, the Nicolaitans, the synagogue of Satan, the ones that make things worse so that you have to make things better. The devil, which is sort of sarcasm or the opposite of the right answer, shall cast some of you into prison. So the devil is not supposed to get too far in an organized and healthy society and economy and polity and civilization. In a good city, the devil gets as far as the word, and then you put him down with a good word, and you can relax as far as the devil is concerned for the moment. But sometimes these sarcasms, these jokes, these opposites of what the right answer is, continue to gain energy and force, and people begin to act out jokes, and they can let a joke go so far that most would probably agree, including the candlestick guy and the church at Ephesus, that they have taken a joke too far and put someone in prison that not only didn't commit a crime, but they're actually a good person, and they're going into prison for being a good citizen and someone you would want to be helping out in your city and not in prison, which is incredibly unfortunate. And he says it will happen so apparently the Nicolaitans are so powerful in the city of Ephesus. There are so many of them. They have so much time and money and friends that they can do something like this for a while and get away with it. And that it will happen to these probably outnumbered um, Ephesian Christians, and that uh, it says you shall have tribulation 10 days. So he says, just think about it as 10 days, whatever it is. You could probably, you can mentally size yourself up to 10 days and get through it that way. Uh, maybe something like that. I don't know. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Very powerful words written by John here. That's when you have conviction. That's when you're sure you're right. That's when letting up will avail you of nothing worth not letting up for. And you remain faithful even unto death. So these are very strong words and strong parameters that John says are set by the candlestick guy in his message from Jesus Christ and time and light to the angel of the church in Ephesus. He says, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Okay, so these guys that do a lot of talking, the guys that are in your ears, he says, are the problem. They're not really solving problems. They're causing problems. They're using your ears to do it. He says that he says that shall not be hurt of the second death. So I don't know what the second death is. Let's read on, and maybe they will define that later in the text. And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write. Okay, so now we're on to the second church in this thread. These things saith he which hath the sharp sword with two edges. Okay, so that's like what that's the candlestick guy. And earlier I said I'm reading this such that the sharp sword with two edges is the reading and writing faculty of a processor apt to compute anything that is computable given enough energy and time. I know thy works and where thou dwellest. So this guy's saying I'm godly, I'm programmatic. He's saying I'm intelligent. He's saying this is this is a guy that John saw amid 7 candlesticks. He's like made out of light or something, maybe, and he is just like humans, godly or programmatic. He is capable of ascertaining the nature of coded keys and the systems they describe. He says, I am intelligent. I'm made out of light, and I'm intelligent like you, and I see you. I know what you've been doing. He says, I know thy works and where thou dwellest. I know where you are. I can locate you in space and time, even where Satan's seat is. He says Pergamos is the seat of Satan, just like he said that they have Satan in Ephesus. Also, they've got it in Pergamos, a big Satan problem. And thou holdest fast my name and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwelleth. So a guy named Antipas living with the church in Pergamos, a member of that church most likely, was slain, kind of maybe murdered, kind of sounds like murdered, um, a murdered martyr, slain by someone there in Pergamus, and it maybe has something to do with Satan, which is again sort of sarcasm, exaggeration, some means of taking a step backward so that you can take a step forward, of getting an overview, a way of planning, but that has in these two cities thus far described, taken on an unhealthy and destructive character, with these results that this being made of light says that, like those living in these cities, he also hates. They're not wrong to hate it. They're not crazy to hate it. They're not bad people to hate it. That they hate it for the same reasons this godly guy made of light hates it. But I have a few things against thee, he says. Because thou hast, so in the first place in Ephesus, this Satanism, this sort of form of this malformed Satanism or misapplied Satanism leads people to end up in prison, where they are in fear of their death, even because of the conditions of this prison, who not only don't deserve to be there because they have not committed any crime, but are actually there because of their virtue, and that the satanic citizens who hold power in this city saw their virtue, and because they saw and noticed that these guys are good citizens and people you would want to have living in your city and helping your city, that's why they put them in prison. And then we see a more advanced form of this cancer, of this programmatic cancer, in the second place in Pergamos, where it has now gone so far, putting these kind of people in prison like this is already something that might make you hate the organization responsible for that result. But now in the next place, it has advanced so far that they have murdered somebody in the same way. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, says the candlestick guy, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. So what these guys are doing, it's a very common human problem, and it's gotten bad enough with the Christians, the early Christians in Pergamos, that the angel of the light, who instructed John, he says, to pass on this message to their angel, cannot bear to neglect mentioning it along with his praise for their steadfastness in the face of so virulent and destructive an enemy as the forces that have resulted in the murder of their friend. Antipas. But meanwhile, these guys are not doing their best at maintaining their mental health and organizing themselves in a natural and healthy way as regards eating things sacrificed unto idols. We have that nowadays. People will smoke things or kind of like a cigarette or maybe a funny cigarette, and or they will vape nicotine, and um, they will look at idols, which are artifices. Back then, they used like drawings and statues made out of stone. Now we use our phones, computer screens, television screens, and phones. And in connection with our intoxication and use of media concurrently, um, as a combination pleasing to us, that we spend a lot of time on. There is fornication, just like adultery, like a giant evil orgy where uh, where humans are displayed and ideas are displayed to the human faculty in a way that sort of makes certain kind of promises to them that are inappropriate to make, and that the promise makers won't really keep, and that it wouldn't be good if they did, in order to get them to continue in this cycle of using these substances to alter the nature of their perception and processing, and view these medias and the depictions contained in these formats. And that it has become a problem. Many people nowadays could probably tell you all of the complaints they have with this common feature of humanity and modern civilization. They can tell you their complaints with dating, how much dating is not fun, how frustrating it is, how confusing and absurd it is, um, what a waste of time and money and emotion it often turns out to be, and how disappointed with um, the pool of candidates for someone to date and be their boyfriend or girlfriend that people are. Um, and a lot of these problems may be, um, they may correlate with um, this idolatry and fornication that is going on in Pergamos, ostensibly by the time they received this message. So hast thou, so the candlestick guy continues, so hast thou also them, so hast thou, I think that means hate, in some sentence tense. So hast thou also, or maybe it means have. All right, let's keep reading. So hast thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitanes, which thing I hate. Repent, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and I will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth it. So what he may be saying is, by the time your city has reached a point in the development of the waveform function being processed through your neighborhood, your local area of the network, that when you notice all these same things happening that are being described in Ephesus and Pergamos, that this you may also find this, that who uses their ear to hear what the Spirit saith, instead of what the troublemaker synagogue of Satan is telling you in your ear, that's wrong and leads people the wrong way. That if you listen to the Spirit, what is the contents of this book, that you and that listen to it and overcometh all of these, find your way to navigate through all of the dangers of captivity and loss and injury and death, that you will be given to eat of the hidden manna. Now, manna refers to food given by a spirit of the sky, maybe similar in nature to this being made of light, to the children of Israel as they wandered in the desert after um, uh, escaping from slavery in Egypt. And that so like God gives them, so like Yahweh or something, Jehovah gave the children of Israel food that like they themselves wouldn't have been able to get without his help. That this Spirit, John says, told him to tell the angel of Pergamos that to tell the angel at Pergamos that he will do something kind of like that. He'll give them manna they couldn't have got themselves, that will be like food for them to eat. And so it'll be something good for them. It'll be something they probably like. It'll be something that will give them energy. And that it will be in the form of a white stone. So white being, as we've established, the visible spectrum, the entire bandwidth of the visible spectrum of light wavelength frequencies, Roy G. Biv, contained in the stone. So it's like a stone containing light. And in the stone, there'll be a new name written. And no man knows what the name says except the guy that receives that message. So here he's referring to cryptography. Cryptography is a specialized branch of mathematics for sending messages on a broadcast that can only be understood with a key code process held only by the receiver and shielded from the viewer knowledge of any others. And when applied to the key code, the corresponding key code message delivered by means of something like light and something like a stone, or maybe literally light in a stone, since those are like themselves after all, um, that it can decode the encrypted message and only the receiver will know what has been said. So, this is the natural technology that is becomes useful and valuable and important in times like those described in these previous verses, and that when you are living in a time like maybe many Russians could remember, they were living like 100 years ago, starting about 100 years ago, or many Germans in the 1930s. Um, that and the United States of America may have its own situation like this in some layer of the stack that pertains to the network in our own unique ways living here. Um, that when these conditions become prevalent and you get a virulent, destructive, programmatic, cancerous form that leads to people being put in prison for being good and people being murdered for being good, that you will have to be able to communicate with other good people without letting anyone who is a liar and a murderer know that you're good, so that you will not become a target for this kind of crime, organized crime, is what I would call it. And unto the angel of the church in Thyatira, right? These things saith the Son of God, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. So, this candlestick guy, the being made of light that John says he saw and began speaking to him in an intelligent way that a human could understand, just like how your own brother, as if it could have been your own brother talking to you, says that he told him to tell the angel of Thyatira that uh, that the Son of God, who I presume to be Jesus Christ, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire. So now his eyes are like a flame of fire. So whatever fire's like, and now his eyes are like that. Um, for this part of the story, and his feet are like fine brass. So now his feet are like, so brass is an alloy of two metals. I think like copper and something, and that it when you mix them together, it makes it a little stronger. Um, yeah, it's like I think copper and something else, iron or something. I don't know. And you can look at very look upable though by now. And mixed together into a bimetal alloy in certain proportions, in a certain way. You can make a stronger metal. It's more durable, less likely to warp, and can be used that way for tools with a wider set of applications or use cases to get more value out of your metal. You might have the same amount of metal, but just by adding heat and a process of admixture to these two metals with your time and labor, you can produce more wealth for yourself that was already there in the metals to be unlocked by mixing them together that way, and increase your productive possibilities. Now, that is also very much like the process of cryptography, where you have two differing elements, but that are interoperable through a process that by mixing them together, coding them together in a certain way, that you get a different result that can make you more powerful and thusly make you stronger and be a safeguard for your health and life. So, so the Son of God has his eyes in like a flame of a fire. Maybe that's because he's looking into it. He's seeing this process happen, which would mean he's looking at a flame of fire, and you may see in the reflection of his eyes that flame of fire. And that his feet are like fine brass. It's not only that it is like cryptography in the sense that using a process to code two different sets of coded keys together in a certain way, you can produce the intended intelligence. But being that his feet are like that, also cryptography is something that can travel. So it moves across the earth as one person speaks to another, like the telephone game. It moves across the earth as a radio transmitter and a radio receiver that is listening to all of the broadcast frequencies across its discernible band. And when it hears a set of coded key signatures in a sequence, something that it is expecting to hear at the beginning of the transmitted message, then it, yeah,
Right, praise God.
thank you, dear, that it then knows the rest of that message. It contains the signal that it is listening for, and it can then receive all of those blips and decode them and then encode them into a format that can be applied by a speaker to produce audio so that a human ear can hear it. So that's how radio works, and broadcast transmissions. They have to work that way, but even transmissions that are in a format that do not have to work that way can sometimes work that way for other purposes, such as, again, concealment, secrecy, privacy, evasion, and to protect yourself from someone who, if they found the message in the signal that you are transmitting, could then target you to steal from you. Steal from your treasury, steal from your family, steal from you. The being of light, John's friend tells him, John's big brother tells him, I know thy, or tells him continues to tell him what to say to the angel of the church at Thyatira, and says to continue on saying, I know thy works and charity, which is a term of Latin origin that in English we say love. In Latin, they say caritas, caritam, something like that. Care time, cares, care tos, your care tos. And that goes all the way back to old Kurgan or something in the plains of Western Russia, um, before River Valley civilization in Iraq and Egypt and India and China, where the first known civilization of behaviorally modern humans moved around their goods to distribute and trade with each other using wooden carts and wheels. And they called those, like we still call such vehicles on wheels today, cars or carts. So it's one of the oldest words and one of the most planetary words in use by humans. And in English, they say instead they say love, which is from French and is like a bath or shower, so that now you're warm and clean. So the angel says to John to say to the angel to the angel in Thyatira, I know thy works, thy charity or love, and thy service and faith, and thy patience and thy works, and the last to be more than the first. Okay, so he's saying also continue to let him know that I see him and I know that they work hard, they care, they work for others, not just only themselves. They're team players. They do teamwork and help others, and they're good at that. They have faith. They don't do anything that contradicts the work and the charity and the service they do. That they do work in charity and service, and they don't do anything that gets the opposite results of the results they're getting from their work in charity and service, which should always be kind of like that Satanism, synagogue of Satan sort of operation. And thy patience, that they use time, that they're good with using time. They use a calendar, they use a day planner. They don't get distracted from what they're focused on doing in this common and profitable enterprise, and that they consider the last to be more than the first. So they are forward-looking and oriented toward the future in the nature of their work and love and service and faithfulness and patience. They may, and it's not that they forget the past or that they don't understand and know of the past, or that they can't or don't draw from the past or use the past when it serves the rest of these things, but that they consider the future or the last to be more than the first or the past. So that's in line again with a theme we've seen a couple times earlier in the text so far, of a message from a being constituted in some ways of time that is and was and is to be. Reading on John says the angel told him, "Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols." So he says that, like the church at Pergamos, the church at Thyatira also has a problem with idols and fornication. They're getting high and using their phones and getting spun up, considering with their time and energy the contents of these medias, while in such a state of altered body and mind, in a way that is maybe imbalanced, um, for the purposes of securing the results of all of those things the angel praised the church at Thyatira for earlier. And he further tags the problem in Thyatira with the name Jezebel, which may be a hyperlink or reference to the stories in the book of Kings, I believe, about Elijah and one, if I remember correctly, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, who are same sort of thing is happening in Israel, um, with Jezebel, and also they are very violent and have killed the in the record, in the books of Kings. They have killed even more people than the Antipas who was slain in Pergamos. And those people were known to be friends with angels and ostensibly were good citizens and supportive to the health of the society and the people. And Jezebel, at the head of the government as its chief executive, ordered their deaths, which soldiers did carry out until there was no one left of this kind except for one Elijah, who was led into the wilderness to make his escape from these idolaters, phone addicts, media addicts, television addicts, and uh, adulterers taking part in a furious and very stupid and very evil and imbalanced and unhealthy orgy. And that, like cryptography hides and secures a message, these angels in their work with Elijah hid and secured him to transmit their message at the useful time to subvert and overthrow Jezebel and restore government and a healthy order to the children of Israel. Well, there's some more left in this chapter, but that's a good place to stop. And we'll take it up from here where we left off with some 1/3 or 1/4 left of the second chapter of Revelation on the next video. And let's plan to continue on from there with the third chapter of Revelation in the third video. Thank you for listening.